Yo, what's up and welcome back to AT Vlogs. Now the reason why today I'm going to be reacting to this video is because I once had a little incident where I actually ordered what I thought were going to be boxy t-shirts, but when they actually came through turned out to be totally something different. You know, they didn't fit right. You know, the whole fit just wasn't something that I actually expected. And this is when I was still printing with Init Apparel. And this is not me trying to put them down or anything. That actually got me thinking if I could maybe try to do it myself, because I was really disappointed by the results I got. When I actually read on the website, it said boxy t-shirts, and if you actually know what boxy t-shirts actually look like, you sort of have an image of what you're actually going to receive. And I had already printed on this t-shirts and everything, but yeah, I was disappointed with the fit, just the whole look of the t-shirt and everything. So yeah, today we're actually going to react to a video where Glory Allen actually walks us through how to actually make a t-shirt from scratch from home, if that's something that you want to do. All you gotta do is just get a sewing machine, a few t-shirt templates, and you're ready to go, you know, stuff like that. Maybe I might eventually try to do this myself. Maybe you're somebody who's been actually thinking of literally doing everything from scratch and just have total full control of the whole process. You know, eventually that's something that's going to happen. Eventually, we'll see. All right, let's get it.
Seems like anyone that gets into sewing at some point wants to sew a t-shirt, but once they do some research and look into how difficult it could be, they sometimes put it on the back burner, visit it another time, or never revisit it. Sewing with knit is definitely challenging, no doubt about that. But in this video, I'll show you exactly how you could sew with knit, specifically how you could sew a t-shirt as a beginner. I have a t-shirt DIY kit for this as well. It includes all the supplies, the fabric. In my opinion,
wait, would you guys actually want to see me actually try and make my own t-shirt from scratch, bro? If I actually maybe like buy a template from this dude right here, I think the Boxy T DIY t-shirt is just $24. So yeah, it's less than 500. It's just around 432 rands. So yeah, man, I could actually try this. As a matter of fact, I should try this. What am I saying? I should try this. All I gotta do is just get someone who's like really good at sewing and stuff like that, and yeah, man, we're ready to go.
It's way easier for a first timer because instead of worrying about sourcing the right material and printing the pattern, you can use this kit knowing it has everything you need, so you can focus more energy on learning the process of how to sew a t-shirt. So without further ado, let's get into it. The bulk of this video is going to be about the fabric, tools, and preparation leading up to sewing, because the pattern itself is pretty straightforward. The body, 2 sleeves, collar. The sewing's straightforward, but it's having the right setup that's going to make this project a million times smoother. T-shirts are commonly made from cotton jersey, but for this video and for the DIY kits, I have French terry. It's a little bit heavier than cotton jersey, which in my opinion makes it a little bit easier for beginners to work with. You'll need 1.5 yards of t-shirt fabric. You'll need a sliver of rib knit for the collar. Usually you can only order like 0.25 per fabric, so 0.25 yards of the rib knit. And then you'll also want matching thread. This one is 100% polyester. It's all-purpose thread.
French terry. Oh my god, what is that? What the heck is that? Let's look that up. French terry. So we got a website right here. It's called Chamdo. Hey yo man, whatever. Chamdo.com. They got the French terries. They got this one. It's black, I think. Let me see that. 150 centimeter plain French terry. It's like 50 bucks. Ooh, we got other nice colors as well, guys. Yeah, you gotta go check it out if you like serious about doing this whole tutorial or something like that.
It's a little bit heavier than cotton jersey, which in my opinion makes it a little bit easier for beginners to work with. You'll need 1.5 yards of t-shirt fabric. You'll need a sliver of rib knit for the collar. Usually you can only order like 0.25 per fabric, so 0.25 yards of the rib knit. And then you'll also want matching thread. This one is 100% polyester. It's all-purpose thread. And you typically want to get this over 100% cotton because it has a little bit more stretch to it. Best practice before any project, wash the fabric before using it. I recommend washing in cold water and then hanging to dry to avoid any shrinkage.
I think this is going to be a mess.
Project is going to make a world of a difference. Ballpoint needles are really important because regular needles will pierce the fabric and potentially skip stitches.
So I think what I would do with this, if I'm actually trying to do it myself, or trying to just do it, I'm just gonna find somebody who's already familiar with the machine, who's already familiar with sewing.
Mrs. Adams is a whiz on a sewing machine, and it's partly because she knows her materials and how to get the most out of them.
And I'm just gonna go through with the patterns and with the everything, and we're gonna just try to do it that way, because this way, yeah, I don't want to learn how to fuck with sewing machines from the start, man. Might have a few missing fingers by the end.
Have these rounded tips, which allows the needle to pass between the fabric threads by separating them, which means it's way better for knit. Ideally, get the twin or double needles. This is probably the most important accessory for this project because it automatically allows for stretch just using your normal straight stitch option. But if you can only get a single ballpoint needle, then make sure your machine has either a stretch stitch option or a zigzag option. The walking foot is also another very helpful accessory. It avoids stretching the fabric when you're sewing, and it also helps stop my machine throat plate from eating the fabric. Major annoyance, big time. You definitely want to avoid this. If you're unable to get the walking foot, then keep the tissue paper that was included in the DIY kits. They're there for a reason, and use them as stabilizers when you're sewing. Odds are, if you're running into issues when you're sewing with this fabric, that tissue paper is going to help. Cut them into 1-inch strips, clip them to the path you're going to sew, and then remove them by hand after very gently. I even ran into some issues using a walking foot where the fabric tunneled between the two stitches. Even the slightest bit can block the feed dogs. So the tissue paper definitely helps keep everything low and smooth. These are the accessories I'd highly recommend. It's going to make sewing this project so much easier. So yeah. By the way, there's a lot of small details that get covered in this intro, so if it's easier, I made a complete guide to sewing knit. There's a link below, so if you'd rather skim that instead of going through this and trying to write all the notes and list out the items you need, feel free to check that out. Alright, let's get moving along here. Start with a highlighter and find your size in the size key to then highlight your cutting path.
Large. Large.
Grab your craft scissors, not your fabric scissors, and cut out the pattern. You can get access to
So it looks like this DIY thingy comes with like all 3 sizes, small, medium, large. So you sort of just like highlight it and cut it out yourself. It's nice. It's nice.
access to the free sewing patterns in the link below for the digital PDF version, and then just search for a local print shop with a large printer, or if that's not possible, I have paper versions available for purchase as well. As always, keep the top left corner of the pattern because it has all the project details, so it's nice to have that organized with all your pattern panels and keep them all together. There's a cutting guide on the right side of the pattern to follow, so you can place your pattern pieces on the fabric accordingly, and just be aware of the orientation of the panels when you're cutting out your fabric. If there's a place on fold.
If there's any of you guys who's actually watching this right now and you're actually familiar with a sewing machine and stuff like that, let me know if this would be something that you would actually want to try out. And if you're gonna try out, just let me know down in the comments. Are you familiar with the sewing machine, and is this an idea you would actually go through yourself? Because that's pretty interesting. I think like if you're pretty familiar with like a sewing machine and stuff like that, this would be a pretty interesting challenge for you to actually see if you could actually get it right. And I would actually argue to say that the way that like boxy t-shirts are so much in demand, if you can actually pull through and actually get it right, I think you would actually be able to sell a lot of blanks. Like point blank, you would be able to sell a lot of blank t-shirts. A lot of people want boxy t-shirts, man.
Fold tab, then make sure to fold the fabric accordingly. And then when you're ready, clip the pattern to the fabric. Now's a good time if you have fabric weights to put them on the pattern, or if you don't, like in my case, just use like mini plates to hold the pattern down. Cutting knit can be kind of tricky because the fabric usually tends to have a lot of stretch to it. This means there's more room for error when you're cutting, so ideally a rotary cutter and cutting mat is best. With scissors, you're typically maneuvering the fabric to get the scissor blades under and around, and the lighter and more elasticity in the fabric, the more susceptible it is to error. For example, sometimes cutting on the floor and having all the fabric spread out is better than having the fabric hang over a desk, because when it hangs over a desk, it induces some stretch. And when you're done cutting, don't forget to notch where it says. Just do small 1/4 inch snips with your scissors. Before we construct this t-shirt and put it together, It's actually time to iron the hem allowance because it's going to be a lot easier while the pieces are flat than later when they're all connected and rolled together. If you're curious what a hem allowance is, it's the excess fabric at the bottom of your t-shirt or the sleeves so that you could fold it over and get a nice clean finish on the edges. Wait a minute. Ironing is not that simple. So there's a few words of caution to be wary of when you're ironing t-shirts. First off, be aware of the right side and the wrong side. On French terry, it's very easy to find the two sides because they're very distinct. Another reason why I wanted the French terry in these t-shirt DIY kits, because the right side, it's very smooth and the wrong side has all these rough loops. So make sure when you're ironing the hem allowance that you have the wrong sides together. Secondly, you want to have it on medium heat with no steam, and you only want to have it on for a few seconds max. You don't want it there for a long time, just a few seconds on and off. And my last bit of advice, the third piece to the puzzle, no circular or arced movements like you normally would, because that can easily stretch out the material, which we don't want. Just press it down for a few seconds, lift, and move on to the next section. To create that hem allowance fold, you can use a ruler and measure and maybe use chalk, or you can actually use a thank you insert in the DIY kits. It has a 7/8 of an inch hem allowance added to it, so just use it as a folding guide. The material has a tendency to stay in place when it's folded.
Yeah man, like this dude has thought of everything. He has thought of possibly everything that you might need in this DIY. By just watching what he actually is doing and everything that he actually includes in his package, like he has thought about everything. Man, I can't wait to eventually try this. You know, even if it's going to look wonky at first, it's going to look crazy, I don't care. As long as I eventually get it right. Even if it's not me, but whoever I choose to work with their sewing machine or whatever, as long as they get it right, that's dope. Because especially out here in SA, it's really hard to get genuine boxy blank t-shirts. Every time if you're trying to get one of those, it's either you gotta buy them where it's actually going to be expensive because they also want to make a profit and everything, so it's already going to, you know, eat into your own profits as well. So there's no genuine way to actually get it. So there's barely a genuine way where you can get it for like barely the price. You know, if you're importing, you're gonna have to pay import fees and everything like that, which is also going to make your t-shirts more expensive and stuff like that. So, and yeah, nobody wants that, you know, you get me, nobody wants that. Even with the street interview video I did with the owner of, you know, World of Youth, the only t-shirts we could get were just like normal, you know, muscle fit t-shirts, but there's no actual place where you can actually get genuine boxy t-shirts, blank ones at that, at an affordable price. If you actually get it right and you actually get to perfect this method, you can make a killing by just selling blanks, man. Selling dope boxy blanks that actually fit well, that actually don't hang on the back, because that was the biggest problem with me when I eventually ordered my t-shirt. It wasn't a genuine boxy t-shirt, you know, some of the stuff you actually see when you actually Google boxy t-shirts that you actually want to wear yourself, but you know, it's really hard to actually find them out here. Every time I see even local brands that actually print on boxy t-shirts, you can actually tell that they sort of, you know, got it somewhere where it was actually made from scratch, you know, which is something similar to the video that we're actually watching right now. So yeah, think about it.
And then iron it down with a quick press. All right, so the fabric's prepped. Let's move on to setting up the sewing machine proper. The accessories you use will influence the sewing machine settings. For example, if you're using a twin needle, you can use a straight stitch, but if you're using a single needle, that requires a stretch or zigzag stitch. I'm going to be running through all the steps using a walking foot and twin needle, but if you are using a different combo of accessories, the knit guide I made has all the different stitch settings listed. We're going to wind 2 bobbins because we're doing a double needle, and keep one of them on top for the top of the machine and the other one in the bobbin case below. And then when you're threading the machine, thread it like normal, but instead you're holding 2 threads, and then on that last hook, just ignore the 1 thread so that it helps keep them separate and prevents tangling. I'm going to have the stitch type to a straight stitch, the tension at 2, width at 0, length 2.5. The presser foot tension is going to be medium, and I'm not gonna backstitch. For a walking foot on a standard sewing machine, it's not designed to do a backstitch, so instead you could change the stitch length to like 0.5 at the very beginning and end of your stitch, so that those tiny stitches are a little bit tighter and they can help lock in the stitches. And then once you've done 3 or 4 stitches, put the stitch length back to your normal stitch length and continue sewing. And good practice.
So I'm listening to this guy actually explain all these settings, but yeah, if you actually gave me a sewing machine right now and told me to actually do this shit, I wouldn't have not a clue what to do. Okay, he's talking about mediums, he's talking about no backstitching. It's talking about, okay, I do understand backstitching, but yeah, for the rest of those settings, yeah, that's why I don't think at first when I'm doing this I'm actually going to attempt doing it myself. I'm going to, you know, sort of work with somebody who is already familiar with these machines and how they work and stuff like that.
Just before starting any project is test out your stitches with some scrap fabric. Always put 2 layers under there because typically you're sewing 2 layers. If you're following my guide, start with those settings and then adjust according to your machine, because even with my settings on your machine, every machine could be slightly different, so just adjust accordingly. And then when I'm working with stretch, after I've stitched a couple times and I like it, I like to take the scrap fabric and just give it a little pull test just to see how stretch it could be. All right, almost 10 minutes into the video and we haven't started sewing yet, but we did cover all our bases. So let's start sewing. Start with panel 1 and 2 and clip them at the shoulders with right sides together. Try your best not to stretch the fabric. Instead of back stitching, I'm going to do those little baby stitches, those little 0.5s at the beginning and the end to lock them in. If you're using a single needle, do the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance stitch and use either a zigzag stitch or a stretch stitch. Once you're done that, we're going to do a quick press with our iron. Remember, no movement, just quick press up and down, and try to push the seam allowance to the back of the shirt. Now we're going to work on the collar, which is panel 3. We're going to fold it, iron it only 2 to 3 seconds, and then sew the ends together. For turning on that curve, when you reach the midpoint where you want to turn, have the needle in the down position, lift the presser foot up, pivot the fabric, and then lower the presser foot back down to continue sewing. Now fold it inside out, or technically right sides on the outside. To attach a collar to the neckline, it's going to be a bit tricky because the collar is actually smaller. This means that you'll have to stretch the collar to fit the size of the neckline. It seems a bit weird, but this stretches on purpose so that...
Nah, it doesn't seem a bit weird. It seems a bit complicated. That's what it seems like. Damn. But okay. Let's continue.
That when it's attached and you put the t-shirt on, the collar lays flat with the body. To do this, we're going to divide the collar and neckline into 3 equal sections. Using measuring tape, we're going to measure the circumference of both and divide by 3. This number is going to be the...
Oh my god, there's math. There's math into this. I should take me back to school. Nigga, I don't even know nothing about math. I was bad at math. I was bad. No, I'm just kidding, guys. But yeah, there's math in this. Obviously, there has to be, you know. Just not the math that we actually learned in school, because I've never had to use that math anyway. But yeah, let's continue.
Key measurement to dividing our collar and neckline into 3 equal parts. Using the seam as the starting point, find the raw edge side, not the folded side, and make 2 notches using that measurement. For the neckline, there's going to be 2 notches. Choose any one of those as your starting point, and then make your other 2 notches to divide it into 3 equal parts. Lay panel 1 and 2 out flat with the right sides on top, and we're going to match up the notches from the collar to the neckline so that they're connected with clips at those 1/3 markings. If you got a free arm, use that, and we're going to stretch sew the collar to the neckline. Remember, the collar is going to be a little bit smaller than the neckline, so you have to slightly pull from the clips so that the collar stretches to fit the neckline. It's a bit tricky for beginners who are learning for the first time. You want to pull slightly so that the collar and neckline are flush with each other, and let the machine feed dogs feed the fabric. And your hands just move with them as it's being pulled, but you're still maintaining that stretch so that the 2 fabrics are flush together. And again, we're going to run those baby stitches at the beginning and the end, or because it's a loop sew and we're going to end up going back to the starting point, you could just do normal stitches at the beginning and then do those baby stitches at the end once you've overlapped the original starting point. All right, collar is attached to the neckline. We're going to do a quick iron to make the seam flat. Again, quick press, no movement. Once this is done, you're going to try on.
I actually wonder how many t-shirts you could actually get to do in a month. Okay, maybe once you get the hang of it, you might be able to do like a lot of t-shirts, but how many though? You got 1 sewing machine, you got 1 person that's actually doing this. I don't know. I mean, if you're actually working really hard, maybe, I don't know, 20 t-shirts a month. I mean, it's sufficient if it's just you and your own brand, or you and your own mini business where you're selling blanks, I mean, that could be sufficient. But yeah, if you're actually going to upscale, then you know, I guess that would need like a lot of people. So I don't know if he's actually going to tell us, but generally one t-shirt, once you get the hang of it, how long does it actually take for you to go from just fabric to a fully complete boxy t-shirt? I wonder.
It's gonna be this funny drapey thing, but if it fits, then we're gonna do a top stitch. So this is when the twin needles also become really clutch, because you can get those parallel stitches done with ease. You sew one time, you get 2 stitches. We're gonna go all the way around. We're gonna have the seam allowance pointed downwards away from the collar. And if you're using a single needle, then just push the seam allowance down and do a 1/4 inch stitch around the collar and the body. So you'll just end up having to do 2 stitches.
Yeah, this is way too complicated for me. I don't know about you, let me know down in the comments, but this is way too complicated for me. All I'm gonna do is just show somebody who knows what to do with these machines. I'm gonna just show them this video, give them their DIY toolkit, and be like,
once all is well, we're gonna work on the sleeves. So lay the body on your table and place the sleeve.
oh, this guy is good though, man. Like look at that collar, bro. This dude is good, okay?
On top so that right sides are together. Find that big curved edge of the sleeve. It's opposite to the hem allowance edge, and line that up with the sleeve opening on the body. We're going to match the middle of that sleeve to the notch on panel 2. Use sewing clips to attach those together, and then from that middle point, clip the rest of the sleeve to the body from that midpoint outwards. When you're clipping this together, it might be a little bit difficult, but you want to rotate the sleeve to match up to the edge of the body. Try your hardest not to stretch the fabric when you're doing this. I know it's going to be hard, but once that's all clipped together, you're going to sew them together. When that's done, we're going to press the seams, just that quick press and done. We're going to push the seam allowance towards the body. So push it towards panel 1 and 2, not towards the edge of the sleeve. Repeat those steps for the other sleeve, and then let's move on to the body. Have the shirt folded at the shoulders so it's right sides together, and then find the armpit seam and clip it, but make sure you try your hardest and your best to match up those seams together, because you really want to make sure they're lined up for when you flip the shirt right sides out. Clip the rest of the body starting at the armpit and clipping outwards. Again, try your best not to stretch out the fabric at all.
Yeah, it looks like the slightest mistake and like, yeah, everything is ruined. Like everything has to be so precise, it's crazy.
You can kind of see a pattern of finding the middle or finding the seam, clipping that together, and then from there clipping outwards. This is because when you're working with fabric like this, it's so easy to stretch and misalign seams. So to prevent that, we start by clipping at the seam or the middle and then going outwards. Once the whole left and right sides clip together, sew from the armpit outwards. So you're going to do that twice for each side. One from the armpit going down to the bottom hem of the shirt, and then once from the armpit going outwards to the sleeve on the left side, and then you're going to do the same thing for the right side. Again, baby stitches, those tiny little 0.5 ones at the beginning and the end, just to help lock in those stitches. Now we want to lock in the hem allowance to finish up the tee. Again, with that twin needle, this is why I love it so much. It gives you that professional look you see on most t-shirts with the double stitching. Find the ironed folds that we made at the beginning for the hem allowances. Line those up with the 7/8 of an inch marker on the throat plate and sew away on the bottom of the t-shirt and the 2 sleeves. If you're using a single ballpoint needle, you're going to match up the fold to the 3/4 inch marker to help make sure your stitches are catching that bottom fold that you can't see. A reminder, this is going to be loop sew, so you don't really need to lock in those beginning stitches. Just make sure when you're coming around to overlap at the starting point and then do your baby stitches or back stitch to lock them in. If you finish this project, share pictures and tag @glory.
Like, I do understand that not everybody in this channel is going to go big by just starting a streetwear brand and then boom, it's viral, boom, you're making a lot of money and stuff like that. So yeah, this could be another interest that you could actually take. It still puts you in the position of still working with streetwear stuff. It still puts you in the position of still working with streetwear brands out there that sort of want this type of blanks and t-shirts and stuff like that. So stressing yourself about how to start a brand and stuff like that, you can actually just put this to practice. Start making some blank t-shirts and then bam, man, you're selling like crazy. obviously, you know, you gotta source out the fabrics and stuff like that, but it won't be as bad as a brand owner trying to import or a brand owner trying to buy something from an already made store and stuff like that. So yeah, if you are somebody, you know, who's just between the brand owner and you supplying the t-shirts and stuff like that, I think that would be like a dope business, stuff like that. But you know, obviously I'm just saying it like it's easy. You know, I literally just admitted myself that, you know, it's kind of crazy how this guy is so precise and does it in a way that actually looks professional. You know, it literally looks like a t-shirt you can go and cop at a store. So yeah, man, obviously it's gonna need some practice, obviously it's gonna need a lot of dedication, but I think once you get it right, man, like you're gone, like money. Anyway, do not forget to like and subscribe, man. I'm gonna keep on bringing this content, constantly giving you ideas on what you can do so that you can still be part of the movement. You know, you don't have to just struggle and break your mind trying to start a streetwear brand. You know, there are other things you can do that can still keep you as part of the movement. Anyway, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm out.